the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland.
It's the question that brought me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
It's the question that brought me.
You stay in Wonderland.
It's the question that
And I
brought
show
me.
you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I didn't say it would be easy.
It's the question that brought me.
The rabbit hole.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we got things resolved here. That would be good. That would be good. I don't have a whole lot of more hairs I can afford to lose. It's coming out. Linda, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
All right. Do we still sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks, or?
No, you sound just fine.
We look like them, but we, as long as we don't sound like them, that's okay.
Right, it's just the teeth. So, you were just talking about the mud hole. I think that's when it cut out. The
prints.
Yeah, there was a prints, and it looked like maybe it was there were deer prints too, and maybe it had done some predation on a deer or something.
Yeah, you could just exactly read what happened. There was a deer. It surprised the deer. The deer dug in its hind hoofs and sprang out, and this thing kind of doubled down a little bit on its. It kind of had to jostle backwards a little bit and then sprang out after it. So, and we didn't find any signs of, a deer carcass or anything like that, but it was just really easy to see what had happened there.
So you're saying that you're still not convinced that it's a werewolf in its traditional sense of the term, like a man turning into a wolf, that kind of thing. So you're thinking that perhaps this is something that just is not documented type of a creature. It's very elusive and secretive. And do you still is that the direction you're going? You think it's just an undocumented creature?
Well, it's not really like I'm just deciding to go in the direction. The fact is that, it's been 22 years, and I still receive an average, say, of one sighting a week. Fewer right now this time of year, but, during the other parts of the year, sometimes I'll get, 2, 3, 4 a week. So there have been hundreds and hundreds of sightings, and somewhere in the 90th percentile of them really don't describe anything that a natural creature couldn't do, because these things are big, but they're not impossibly huge. The largest are said to stand 7 feet tall, and a big-sized timber wolf can get to that height if it's standing on its hind legs.
Right.
And standing on the hind legs is not a supernatural act. Canines can do that. You can look up YouTube and see all kinds of little dogs dancing and running around. They don't usually do it in the wild unless they've injured forelimbs or lost forelimbs, because it's they're just not equipped really to hunt well that way. But I've never also had a witness say that they've seen one missing its forelimbs. The question is then why they run around that way. And the thing is that, according to many, many witnesses, they can go from four-legged to two-legged stance, whichever way suits them. Sometimes people will see them running alongside the road on all fours, and then when they look at the people, they'll stand up, advance a little, finish running across the road on its hind legs, or vice versa. So, the thing is, when they're on all fours, there's not much to distinguish them from just a really large dog or wolf. Their eye shine is almost always described as yellow or green yellow, which is the normal color for canine eye shine. They have normal dog features that are fairly consistent, usually a long muzzle, triangular ears, pointed ears on top of the head, usually kind of a shaggy coat that ranges from gray to brown to black, which is within a normal range for, wild wolves. Or wolf-dog hybrids, which I think is probably a likelier bet. But then there are a certain number, maybe 5, 6, 7% at most, where there are some strange things that happen. For instance, there have been a number of people that have happened to have encountered them in the wild while they had firearms, and shot at them, and are sure that the bullet's connected, but there seems to be no real effect other than the creature just runs off into the brush. They never find it dead or find, pieces of it or anything like that. And that's something that also is often reported with Bigfoot.
Right.
So there's a corollary there. I've had a couple of people report seeing sort of transformation scenes, but not like in the traditional werewolf way. One looked like they'll describe it as more like a shapeshifter sort of thing. And there are certain practices, let's say, in most native religions worldwide, where the shaman or the medicine man will study to be able to project what some people call the aura or the spiritual essence, or there are a lot of different terms for it. Some just say a mind projection. They project that out to assume the shape of the animal, or in some cases kind of cover themselves with this assumed projection, so that they're wearing kind of a spirit suit that looks like a wolf, or a bear, or whatever animal is, in South America it would be the jaguar that they would be imitating. It's a very, very common thing worldwide, actually.
Now Linda,
so I'll just make one more quick statement. Okay. I don't rule out the fact that there are other possibilities for a small number of, or a small percentage of them, such as shape-shifting, or time shifts, or interdimensional travelers, and I don't claim to know much about those or insist that any of those are true. I just allow for the possibility.
Yeah.
Now, have any? I know some of the Bigfoot or Sasquatch sightings. This is going a little bit further in the rabbit hole here, but some of those cases have witnesses saying that there were UFOs present. Do you ever get any testimony of something like this with the dogman or werewolf situation? Not so much, other than, I've never had anybody say, well, we saw a UFO, and then the next thing I won't say nobody. I've had one or two notice UFO sightings first, and then this creature starts appearing, but they don't see the two necessarily right together. I think it's a little more common with the Bigfoot than it is with the Dogman, but I will say that they all seem to appear in the same areas of high strangeness. For instance, in southeastern Wisconsin, we do have a lot of Bigfoot sightings, as well as these upright wolf-like creatures, and a lot of UFO sightings. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of left to us to connect the dots, right, and decide what that means. And I'm not sure anybody knows for sure. Some people think that, the aliens are sort of dropping these things off as scouts or errand boys of some kind, or maybe that they're pets. Other people think that perhaps the aliens, if they indeed are aliens, piloting the UFOs, are abducting the creatures and studying for their own purposes the same way that they abduct humans. Mm-hmm. And it's impossible, in my opinion, to know really for sure, what that is. Or if there's just, some people think that there is an all-pervasive sort of earth spirit matrix that can interact with the human mind and the human consciousness to manifest in different ways, as a UFO, as a large furry creature, as a flying bat-winged creature. Right. And that's why we get so many manifestations of odd things seemingly concentrated in certain areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about that just a couple of weeks ago, Linda. I was thinking, because on this show we specialize mostly in ufology, but I'm a big cryptozoology fan, and being where we live in the Pacific Northwest and whatnot. But I was thinking about the cross-species hybridization theories that a lot of people have in ufology, and I was thinking about the same thing. I was like, what if, because allegedly these ETs are able to cross-species hybridize just about anything. So what if, who's to say they're not doing that between wolf and man? And, I've thought about that too. That would be interesting. And you talked about, some people talk about shooting these creatures and with very little to no effect. Are you familiar with the book, The Hunt for the Skinwalker by George Knapp?
Yes, and Kelleher, yes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've written about that and referred to it, and yeah, many of the things that they report are similar to things that have been reported to me too.
Yeah, I mean, these wolves they looked like regular wolves, but they were like 5 feet at the shoulder. They had to look down to look into a
Mhm.
car door. I mean, that just scared the bejesus out of
Right.
me. I couldn't imagine. And when they
Yeah,
shot
and
it,
yep.
it just blew
And I
some
do
fur
get
off.
reports of wolves or wolf-like creatures that are that size. You know, people will say that it came up to their shoulders came up to the hood of their truck,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it was looking in the truck window at them on all fours. And I get really more than
Jesus,
I would
that's
think
huge.
that I would of that sort of thing. And there's no way to say that they aren't natural animals in some way,
Right.
shape or form, you know, just way oversized. But that seems, you know, sometimes they're just a little too big to really be natural. And I
Right.
don't claim to have the answer.
I would crap my pants if I saw something that big coming up to my car. I would crap,
Right.
literally.
You know, there have been large wolves. I mean, the dire wolf, they find the bones and the La Brea tar pits and whatnot. You know, who's to say maybe there's a few pockets? I find it very unlikely because, you know, there's so many people in this world now.
Wisconsin's a pretty
It's very rural.
pretty large in the Native American
Yeah.
culture, right?
There's a lot of very healthy, rich
Well,
folklore.
Yeah, that's something that's very interesting. Wisconsin, especially southern Wisconsin, which is where most of the upright wolf creature sightings are, has something like the percentage is something like 96% of the world's ancient animal-shaped effigy mounds. There are other effigy mounds. There are other ones that aren't so ancient, but ancient animal-shaped effigy mounds, this is the place. And many of them have been destroyed, but quite a few have been preserved in parks. You can still see them. And there seems to me to be a really strong correlation between sites where one certain type of these animal effigy mounds, the ones that had very long tails and were associated with, the settlers called them lizard mounds because of the long tails, but they really represented water spirits or water panthers.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever these mounds, there are concentrations of those mounds, there are sightings of the upright wolf-like creatures. And nobody really knows for sure what these mounds represented. They have some good ideas. They were secret spaces. They represented the cosmology of the Native Americans at the time. But they were built by people who came before the Native Americans that were here when the settlers arrived. You know, so they're quite old. We also have some really unusual geological features in that the glacier came through, stopped about halfway across Wisconsin. So the eastern side of the southern half of Wisconsin has lengthy diagonal slashing of scooped out bowl-shaped depressions called the Kettle Moraine that stretches from north of Milwaukee down to Walworth County, where I live, about halfway through Walworth County. And we find all kinds of crazy things in there. Lots of UFO sightings, like the Bigfoot, Goat Man, Wolf Man. And then on the western side, you've got, it's kind of where the glacier reached to a hall that's called the unglaciated area. And you've got these wild gorges and mini mountain ridges and this huge long stretch of ridges that are made out of this pure but very rare red quartzite material. Mm-hmm. So you've got this sort of giant source of crystalline energy.
Right. Interesting.
I think that makes a huge difference in some of the the parallels with these types of, if they are dimensional type beings, then they're gonna be able to utilize that material to access.
Right, and it's been established
our
that
realms.
Crystals give off a certain vibration. The vibrational energies do change things. So I mean that is interesting. I never really thought about the geology. That's cool.
Yeah, one thing I try to do whenever I get reports, and Google Earth makes this so much easier now. Mm-hmm. But I have a bunch of atlases too, and I like to look at the map and sort of document not only what geographical features are around it, but then whatever human artifacts are there sacred grounds? Is there a military base? Does it look like power plants? And
amazing how often the same things keep popping up. Major crossroads.
Go on. You there?
That sort of thing.
Oh,
Are you getting feedback again?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. It's a little hard to tell whether it's the feedback or you guys sometimes.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting that maybe, possibly some of these, especially military bases, might build their base because of the geological area, the energies there. I mean, just like the Bigelow facility over in the Skinwalker Ranch now.
Utah. Right.
Well, that, and I've also noticed that military bases and old sacred places have a lot of the same requirements. They want a place that's high, a high elevation. For military, it's so that it's more defensible. They need a source of water. There's always a source of water near both types of places, and often they've been occupied by one or the other for many, many millennia, as far back as anybody can remember. The same places tend to get reused both for sacred spaces and military bases.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of for me, this is just me personally. I'm more interested in these oversized wolves that are hanging around on all fours than I am the creatures that are reported being upright. That being said, I don't want people to get the wrong impression out there, the listeners, that they're just seeing dogs walk on their hind legs. A lot of those reports, they're reporting long, more man-like thighs, shoulders, arms, hands with opposable thumbs. You're getting a lot of reports with that too,
not
right?
so much the hand. Really, it's almost always paws, but the paws are somewhat elongated, and they have claws.
Right.
And they use those claws sort of the way to kind of grab onto things and even hold them upwards. I've even had one witness see them drinking out of their paws, but the people are very careful to differentiate between the paws and, say, a Bigfoot witness who will say they had hands. They had definite hands,
right.
And there is a difference there. But you are right in saying that they're not just a normal Fido, your neighbor's Fido that got up and decided to walk around one day. There's a lot more to them, and there's a sort of a spooky, emotional, intellectual aspect to them that creeps people out really more than just the fact that they're on their hind legs, which is that they'll say things like, "It looked right through me," or "I felt that it was sneering at me," or "I felt that it was telling me it could come and jump on my car and get me if it wanted to," or "I felt like it was letting me know that if I told anyone, it would come and get me." Not so much in words, but they get these distinct impressions, and they feel the creature is locking eyeballs with them, and sort of almost communicating or sussing them out as much as they're looking at it. Except the creature isn't frightened. The creature invariably, and this is the other weird thing, after 22 years, you'd think that, some people would have been mangled or said that it came at them and tore a chunk out of their leg or whatever, but in every case, the creature, just when the person thinks they're about to be eaten or pounced upon or whatever, the creature just turns and runs off into whatever brush or cover is nearby, and it almost always has brush or cover.
Right.
It's almost never just caught out alone, and say in the desert with nothing to hide itself.
Right. Which
also implies a sort of intelligence as to planning its route,
right?
Or where it goes.
Its egress. Yep. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my very next question. Is how come, people feel like they're just scared. They're scared to death. They're frozen, and they feel like you said, it could attack them at any time. I was going to ask you, has anyone been attacked? And you hit up on that. Now, I find that very interesting, and there's got to be a reason behind that as well. I mean, what have you gotten out of it? I mean, you spent a lot more time doing this.
I'll tell you what, the very best, and I'm not saying I totally subscribe to it, but the paradigm that fits all the facts the best comes from the Native American people that I've interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've interviewed, tribal elders, and in one case, a woman who is actually an anthropologist and a tribal elder, and they all tell me that this creature goes back, way back, to the times of, they say, the grandfathers, which means ancestors, as far back as they know, and they believe that it's something that was around before people were, and that there is some ancient business between it and humans that forbids it from hurting humans.
Huh. Interesting.
So, and I don't know if that's the truth or not. I've had a remote viewer try and view them and told me that, and this is a man who was trained and worked for the U.S. government in this capacity at one time.
Mm-hmm.
He believes they're some sort of alien or interdimensional scouts that are under orders they have to lie low. They're here more for observation, for future purposes, or and in a strange way, it sort of tallies with the Native American view of it. But what it tells me is that other people for a long time have noticed that they do lurk but don't attack, and there has to be some reason for it.
That makes sense too if you think about it. If you're going to have a stealthy type creature do your reconnaissance, if you will, for lack of a better term, that's a pretty perfect one, don't you think?
Well,
I mean, wolves could be all around you wouldn't even know it.
Well, we talked about this too, where some ETs, certain types like the Greys, they project like an owl as sort of a mask before an abduction. Maybe the wolf is sort of a costume, a mental costume or something.
Right. Why they would make it bipedal is a whole nother
right.
Because I could live with seeing a wolf in the wild, but I see it stand up and it scratch its head and sneer at me, I'm gonna
You're gonna poop.
Right.
Yeah, probably. I'm probably just gonna seize up and fall over right there.
You're gonna drop.
Be like those goats that they scare, and they just fall over. That would be me.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So let's.
Well,
go ahead, Linda.
I was just gonna say that there is the bipedal aspect in some cases, especially when there are these eerie cases where it seems interested in looking into people's houses, their windows, and or running alongside the car, and a lot of times those correlate with traditions of skinwalkers, which again is back to the idea of the medicine men that learn how to project the illusion.
Right.
And I've done enough research. If you read my books, I've got pretty good backup to where I think that is the basis of most of the skinwalker phenomena. That it's more of a projection, like you were just saying a minute ago. So the skinwalker aspect does come into it sometimes, and I think that is what scares people. Those are the very scariest ones.
I think a lot of people have the misconception that the skinwalker is exclusive to the American Southwest, and it's not. There's they may call it different things in different areas. In the Pacific Northwest, they might call it something else, and where you're at, the upper Midwest, they might call it something else. What do they call it in your neck of the woods? Do they say skinwalker in that?
Well, more. There's another term called the skin changer, which is a little more with some of the Algonquian tribes. Excuse me. And the Canadian Cree have what they call bear walkers, which is the exact same thing. People will see a bear, or sometimes it's a upright bear, that is sent out, usually up to no good, to make a person sick or whatever.
Who coined the term the dog man?
The dog man is more the term from Michigan. My term, what I wrote about it first was the beast of Bray Road, and I used that because even right away I didn't like the word werewolf. The dog man comes out of Michigan, is their tradition, and I use it. I think it's equally applicable because we don't really know if these things are actually wolves or wolf-dog hybrids or some kind of large breed of dog. So dogman works just fine for me, and I use it, as I said, interchangeably with wolfman, man-wolf. Sometimes, on a rare occasion, just for variety's sake, or if there's a special purpose, I'll throw the werewolf word out there. But otherwise, I think these things are all interchangeable. And down south, you have the Lugaroo or the Rougarou. They're all pretty much the same thing.
Now we touched
different names.
We touched up on the fact that it doesn't seem like they choose to attack humans. Is that different for, say, household pets or livestock?
Yes. Yeah, they seem. Had people report seeing one standing on its hind legs with their cat in its mouth just outside the patio door. Another man saw it actually kill his German Shepherd, an Illinois person. So, and they'll find their pet dead. Lots of times before the thing is seen, cats will be going missing from a neighborhood. So it seems that, and they also seem attracted to like sheds and chicken coops where small farm animals are left.
Has there been any like carcasses left where they've been able to, I guess, document or have some pictures, sort of like cattle mutilation type stuff?
Not that I know of. Usually, if it's if a farm animal is killed, they're not thinking in terms of investigating